And if you are listening to these voices, which Maxine Waters telling people, stop people, get involved with them personally. Forget about going to the polls. Forget about voting. Forget about peaceful demonstrations, but to get involved personally with people, to drive them out of restaurants, movie theaters, art exhibits, etc. You'd have to admit things have really gone by the wayside. Things have really gone in a backwards direction, especially the Dems. There was a time where you could get people back, and you could do it at the ballot. But now people are taking things into their own hands. Violence, is assaulting people, kicking people out of establishments. That's okay. You know, there's this thing that I believe that's called karma. And I do believe that it eventually catches up with you. Now, notice some things that happened to that Redhead restaurant. The lady who was business partners, she resigned. There was feces that was thrown the other day. The fire department had to come out and wash that off. But they had to close the restaurant because of the backlash. Folks, there's more people that support the President of the United States in the office of the presidency, and they're not going to be able to do these things to personally attack people that work for Donald Trump. This has caused a backlash in a negative way, and where Sean Hannity went on the air and said that Maxine Waters, one that responsible for the killing at the Capital Gazette, it's people like her. I know what Sean was saying. I know what he was talking about. It was people like her. That people, they get all upset thinking that they can just get back at people because they don't like them. This is a democracy, folks. You don't like what people are saying, then you can vote against them. And you can do that privately at the ballot. And that's how you get them back. You can call your senators, your congressmen. If you don't like something public going on, you can go to a town hall meeting and voice your discontentment. You have elected officials in those positions to be able to tell them how you feel. But obviously, Ramos did not go through this democratic process. This man apparently had some mental issues, and the paper apparently did not get things wrong because this man was a loose cannon. Now, this brings me back to things that I've said prior to this broadcast and many other broadcasts, from going back all the way back to Sandy Hook, the Vegas most recently shooting, and these rampages that keep on taking place. It is not the guns. It's these crazy folks that people have said someday this person's going to kill somebody. We have a mental health crisis in this country. There's no doubt about it. A mental health crisis. And the president needs to call it just what it is. Donald Trump, I believe, listens to this broadcast from time to time, and some of his people in Washington, D.C. How do I know that? Well, Chuck talked to Donald Trump and corresponded with him and really thought fondly of what Chuck did. And if you knew Chuck for a long time, you know that Donald Trump is living out Chuck's dream for this country, getting us back on the trail, back on that rail. We got some equal footing here, so we can actually start living the American dream. But the mental illness is an epidemic. There are so many people that are sick, and self-medicating themselves. Unrecognized mental illness is getting people killed. Unrecognized, and people that don't know what to do. You know, there's this thing, If you see something, say something. This needs to apply for mental illness, in my opinion, which Chuck used to say, which I'm entitled to. We have to be our brother's keeper. We have to hold people accountable. If people are, and folks, if people say they're going to kill themselves or kill somebody else, you need to take, you say, well, they're just blowing off steam. No, they're not. Statistics show people that are going to commit suicide or people that are going to kill other people, when they say these things, it's the numbers show unequivocally that they carry out these heinous acts. There's science, psychology, and all sorts of things behind it. But yes, you should take people at their word. You have to contact the authorities. You have to let everybody know. Should there have been an armed guard there, perhaps because of these threats? I think things are going to have to change in America. These things continue to go. There's going to have to be more of these places that could, newsrooms, Google has their own security, but, radio stations have their security protocols. Schools now are beefing it up where they have armed teachers and faculty. Folks, it's going to come to this. I know there's gun advocates. They'll say, well, that's just going to worsen things. You're going to put more guns out there. It's going to invoke more violence. And that's what they say. That's what they say. Mental illness is a reality, and it's something that's not talked about. The opioid addiction is tied and linked to mental illness. Not all people that began taking opioids had mental illness. They had an injury, and then they became addicted to these prescribed medications. I get that. I understand that. But unless we take this very seriously, the mental illness aspect of that, you're not going to see any of this go away, any of this change. We have isolated ourselves with social media. We don't talk with each other. We talk at each other. That's one of the biggest takeaways that I can really give you right now. We don't talk with, we talk at. And a lot of people, they feel so comfortable behind their keyboard. You'll never see them at a town hall meeting. You'll never see them hardly vote. But man, are they filled with all kinds of opinions. And regardless of how ridiculous it sounds, they will spew off hatred and ignorance 24/7. And that is the beauty of the internet. And people really feel emboldened about that. And, you can log on at any computer just about, unless there's some kind of firewall that doesn't allow you to be able to seek out all the information you want to seek out. But you can pull up any newspaper, find out where they live just about. Unfortunately, there are services that you can spend $19.95 or $15 and even find a writer at a newspaper or at a magazine or at a radio station or television station, and you could go after them. If you don't like what they say, if you don't like what they talk about, if you don't like where they go to a restaurant. Folks, we live in some very odd times. I think they got more time on their hands than I can tell you. To be able to have all this time on their hands to be able to do these things. I didn't have this time when I worked in corporate America. I have a small business. I'm thankful for it. But I didn't have all the time in the world to be able to sit there and, as a lot of people do, is to sit there and peruse on social media about half their shift. On their phones. It's unreal. You say, well, not at my company. A lot of companies have cracked down where you have to leave the stuff in the locker. I think that's a great idea. I think they should do that in more of the schools. Yeah, sometimes they'll take your phone away. But again, People do not talk with each other. They talk at each other. And we don't even know our neighbors anymore. That's a shame. And people are afraid to say anything because, well, what if you're wrong? What if you were wrong? So what? But if you were right, you could have avoided 5 people getting killed today or, on Thursday. I'm just saying, folks, we just need to do a better job taking these threats much more seriously and taking action in a way that, extra security, an extra watch on these people. These loose cannons, you should put tags on them like animals. I hate to say it, folks, like that, but you get a pedophile, for instance, okay? And they're out and about. They need to be tagged. Where are they electronically? Somebody needs to monitor it. If there's somebody that's making threats against the newspaper and against its reporters, yeah, tag them. Say that's unconstitutional. Folks, if you have a mental illness and you're spewing off this type of stuff out of your mouth, there's something wrong with you. There's something wrong with you. You're not right. And you're a danger to yourself and other people around you. And I don't see too many people on the left coming out and being too remorseful about this whole thing. But those that do will bring up the guns. The guns are the problem. If the man didn't have access to... The man didn't have an axe, he could build a bomb. There's always ways to kill people. The fastest... Yeah, guns. What's next? Knives. More knives kill people than anything. Swords around the world. Knives and swords than guns. But you can go back to McVeigh, fertilizer bomb. You could build bombs. You can get some C4. And by the way, it's become much more easier to obtain than you know. I even hate to say it, but it's true. Folks, we got to be more careful. We honestly do. All right, Melania Trump, remember the jacket that she put on? Yeah, it was a very odd thing, but I understand where the First Lady was coming. On June 21st, the First Lady sparked outcry as she was spotted with something on the back of her jacket that read, "I really don't care, do you?" And she wasn't saying she didn't care about the children that were being separated because she was visiting them and giving them comfort. She doesn't care what the liberal media has to say about her or her husband's policies. These policies have been on the books since the 70s. Hardly anybody really reinforces them, and it's kicked the can down the road. But they've been trying to kick it in Donald Trump's face ever since he talked about any of this, with people taking advantage of our country, and they do every single day. And you don't get mad when a lady does something illegal like robs something from a Dillard's and then goes to jail. You expect that the mother should have her child in jail cell with her? What's different about it? She broke the law. She's not going to have her child in the jail with her. You know how many mothers would love that are in jail or in the penitentiary right now that would love to have their children? Is it fair for the child to do time? Probably not. Is it fair for the parent to break the law? Absolutely not, and they should have thought about that. Yeah, they should have thought about that. A lot of people should think about things before they open up their mouth and insert their foot. This is the problem with this country. People spout off the darndest things, and they don't know anything they're talking about. They have no idea the handling and what goes on at the borders and with the coyotes, and how many of these parents are really parents of these children at all. And the fact remains that most of them are not their parents.